The gods are nothing more than memories that refuse to die. But what happens when something older than them awakens? Maybe humanity was naive to believe it could claim the cosmos for itself, that it could cast the old ones out, rewrite their stories, and forge a future without divine shadows. But some shadows never fade, they only wait. Orbeping, a wandering moon, a corpse of metal and steam drifting at the edge of the solar system. If the universe had a dumping ground for its mistakes, this was it. A forgotten colony, a filthy port crawling with merchants, pirates, and smugglers of forbidden technology. The sky above was a well of liquid jade, a dense green fog that never cleared. The stars looked dead, too distant for hope. The city itself was an aberration, towers corroded by time, platforms suspended over a black ocean of space debris, and underground tunnels where light never touched. Here, no one asked your name, no one cared where you came from. The only thing that mattered was what you had to sell. And someone had tried to sell something that should not exist. The monolith of Ra, an ancient artifact, stolen, vanished before history itself was written. But it wasn't just some forgotten piece of technology. It was something more, something that belonged to an era when gods were not myths, but lords of reality. And now it was here. We had come to retrieve it. I, Dr. Abyss, along with a crew of humans and the resurrected of Osiris, mercenaries from Red Dragon, soldiers from Gigantia, and the servants of the god of resurrection, all united by a single purpose, to claim the monolith before it fell into the wrong hands. The problem? It had already been taken. The smugglers who tried to sell it were dead before we arrived, their bodies scattered across the submerged bazaar, cut with molecular precision. This wasn't the work of pirates. It wasn't a gang ambush. It was an execution, and the rumors spread like ghosts. A dark figure, moving through the shadows, golden eyes burning like doomed suns. We thought we were hunting for an artifact. But now we were the prey. The hunt for the monolith of Ra led us to Orbeping, but instead of finding it, we found only shadows and corpses. The pirates who tried to sell it, dead before the deal could even happen. Their bodies were scattered across the submerged bazaar, their armor sliced apart as if it were nothing more than paper. The wounds were precise, impossibly clean, like the blade that killed them had been guided by an intelligence beyond human comprehension. The monolith was gone. Someone had taken it before the massacre began. And that someone was now our only link to the artifact. Vex, a smuggler who managed to escape, was our only lead. He had fled into the industrial sewers of Orbeping, trying to sell information on the monolith's whereabouts to the highest bidder. If we wanted to find him before the assassin hunting us did, we had to move fast. But there was a problem. We were not alone. Whatever had left those bodies behind was still watching us. In the alleys of Orbeping, in the shadows between the flickering holographic signs, we could feel its presence. Tall, slender, moving without a sound. Metallic tendrils slithering through the corridors like biomechanical serpents. Golden eyes glowing without a soul. The merchants had started whispering about her. The blade. The thing that never misses. But she had no name. Not yet. And if we wanted to reach the monolith first, we had to survive her. We descended into the submerged bazaar of Orbeping, a black market hidden beneath the city, where mercenaries, traffickers, and modified cyborgs traded in forbidden technology. The air was thick with the stench of burnt oil and synthetic flesh. Every shadow concealed a potential killer. But what we found there was a massacre. The smugglers who had tried to sell the monolith of Ra were dead. Their bodies littered the market, sliced apart with impossible precision. There were no signs of struggle, no gunfire, no trails of escape, just clean, molecularly perfect cuts like something had dissected them with an invisible scalpel. And there was something else. Carved into the weapons of the dead, symbols glowed in an alien blue. messages, not for them. For us, you are late. Whoever had done this wanted us to know. Then everything fell apart. The survivors, the few pirates who hadn't been killed, saw us, and they drew their own conclusions. To them, we were the culprits. Shouts echoed through the market. Someone reached for a gun. The shooting began. Plasma grenades exploded against the market's metal walls, incinerating holographic banners and vaporizing stands of illegal goods. Red Dragon mercenaries returned fire, covering our retreat. The Gigantea soldiers formed a moving shield, pushing through the pirates that blocked the exit. But there was a bigger problem. We were being watched. In the alleys between the flickering neon signs, on the catwalks above the market, we could feel her presence. Tall, elusive, moving without a sound. Metallic tendrils slithering across the walls like biomechanical serpents. Golden eyes burning in the dark, like condemned suns. She didn't attack, not yet. But we knew it was only a matter of time. We escaped the bazaar through a side passage, descending into the industrial tunnels below the city. According to our trackers, only one person had survived the massacre. Vex, an information smuggler, a specialist in staying alive when things went to hell. He knew something about the monolith's location, and now he was our only living lead. We hunted him through the tunnels, a maze of damp corridors and cooling ducts. Every corner could be a trap. But when we found him, it was already too late. He was sprawled on the floor, eyes rolled back. Metallic tendrils burrowed into his skull, draining his memories, extracting every fragment of information about the monolith, like a virus consuming code. She was there, the shadow that had stalked us since the bazaar. The blade, or, as we would soon learn, Nyxerax. The tendrils withdrew from Vex's skull. His body collapsed, lifeless. She turned to us. For an instant, she didn't attack. She was analyzing, calculating, choosing who to kill first. Then the hunt began. We ran. There was no other choice. The metallic echoes of her tendrils followed us through the corridors. We burst out of the tunnels into the scrap field, a graveyard of abandoned ships and the rusting corpses of war mechs. The only way was forward. But she wasn't in a hurry. She surfaced and disappeared among the wreckage, a liquid shadow, moving too fast to be human. We opened fire. She predicted every shot. Explosions tore through the wreckage, sending shrapnel flying, but she moved through it like a ghost. Every corridor between the ships felt like a dead end. Then we saw it. An abandoned pirate freighter. The same one that had brought the monolith to Orbeping. We ran inside, sealed the doors, hoping we'd have at least a few moments to plan our next move. And inside that forgotten ship, we found it. A map, a path to the monolith's true hiding place. But we knew Nyxerax already knew. And now we weren't just hunting for a lost artifact. We were in the sights of something far greater. Something that cannot be killed. Something that will never stop. Descending into the underbelly of Orbeping was like stepping into the maw of a forgotten titanomachy. We moved through jagged fissures in the metal where toxic steam hissed from ancient pipelines. The city, already a graveyard of rust, became even older the deeper we went. Corroded tunnels, abandoned corridors, structures so ancient they seemed to belong to a world before humans. But we had no choice. She was hunting us now. Not just watching, not just tracking. Nyxerax was hunting us. The map we found aboard the pirate freighter had led us to what was called the Dead Zone, a collapsed sector where Orbeping's original foundations had crumbled centuries ago. A deep industrial abyss, surrounded by leaning towers, shattered walkways, and long-forgotten machinery. The only way across was a network of unstable metal bridges, connecting floating ruins to a central tunnel at the bottom of the pit. That tunnel led to the burial site of the monolith. We had to reach it before her, but Nixarax wouldn't let us pass so easily. We were halfway across when the lights flickered and died. A cold wind rushed through the chasm, carrying the scent of burnt oil. And then the sound. A metallic hiss, followed by a wet crack. The Gigantia soldiers turned their flashlights toward the darkness. Nothing. Then, she dropped from above. Nixarax landed on the bridge behind us. Her crimson eyes ignited the darkness, slicing through the void like blades of fire. She didn't move, not at first. She wanted us to see her. Then she advanced. Too fast, too silent. Her biomechanical tendrils unfurled like living blades. Gigantia opened fire. Plasma rounds tore through the dark, explosions rattling the bridge like thunderclaps. But she dodged everything, not like someone reacting quickly, but like someone who had already seen the future. Then came the first strike. A red dragon mercenary reached for his rifle, too slow. A blade pierced his chest. He froze, the blade hummed inside him, vibrating at a molecular level. Then she ripped it back out. The mercenary collapsed. The cut was so clean it was as if bone had never existed. Chaos erupted. "Run!" I shouted. But escape wasn't simple. She blocked our retreat, and the bridges ahead were fragile. The only way through was to force her back. A Gigantia soldier primed a shockwave launcher and fired at the floor. The blast sent Nixarax skidding backward, her tendrils twisting violently as she slid across the surface. It was enough. We ran forward. The bridge shook beneath our feet. Plates of metal snapped loose, plunging into the abyss. I risked a glance back. Nixarax was already rising to her feet. She wasn't hurt. She was satisfied. Like this was all a game. Like she was guiding us. We made it across the final bridge, reaching the central tunnel. It was vast, a subterranean canyon, its walls etched with symbols worn by time. The ground was black, cold metal, unlike anything else on Orbeping, and there, beneath our feet, was the entrance to the monolith of Ra. But Nixarax didn't follow. She stood at the far end of the ruined bridge, watching us. Her crimson eyes burned in the dark. We exchanged uneasy glances. Why had she stopped? One of the resurrected of Osiris whispered, "She can't enter." No one answered. But we knew. It wasn't that she couldn't enter. She didn't need to. She already knew we would. Then we heard it. A low. The monolith was awake. It was calling from below, waiting for us in the heart of the abyss. I took a breath. Let's end this. And we stepped inside. Behind us, Nixarax vanished into the dark. She didn't need to chase us anymore. We were exactly where she wanted us to be. The pulse of the monolith called to us. It wasn't a sound, it was something felt. A slow, deep rhythm resonating through the black metal beneath our feet, vibrating in our bones like a second heart. The tunnel led us into a massive chamber, a buried sanctuary hidden within the forgotten layers of Orbeping. Its architecture was impossible to date, not human, not from the resurrected of Osiris, not from any civilization we knew. This was not a temple. This was something older than the very concept of worship. And at its center, pulsing like a dead star on the verge of rebirth, stood the monolith of Ra. Tall, angular, its black surface absorbed the light around it. Symbols, carved deep into the stone, glowed in spectral blue, their reflections stretching across our suits, our weapons, our tired faces. For a moment, no one spoke. We had made it. And we knew she would come. The predator, the shadow that had been hunting us since the beginning. The thing that could not be killed. She wouldn't make us wait. The silence shattered, a faint metallic breath. The sound of tendrils sliding across the floor. We turned. She was there, standing at the entrance of the chamber, watching us. Tall, slender, her movements were too precise, too smooth, calculated at an atomic level. The monolith's glow reflected off her biomechanical armor, her tendrils floating around her like living blades, waiting to strike. And then her eyes, burning like dormant embers. She didn't attack, not yet. She simply studied us, like she already knew what was coming. A Gigantia soldier raised his weapon. I lifted a hand, stopped him, because I understood. This wasn't a fight. This was an answer. I took a step forward. The air between us felt heavy, as if the chamber itself had gained mass. My voice echoed. Nixarax tilted her head, her gaze pierced through me. Then she spoke. Doctor? Her voice was unnatural, a metallic echo, fragmented and broken, like something not meant to speak but trying to. That is your name? It's a title, a concept. She processed this. Her tendrils vibrated, as if something deep inside her was rewriting itself. And then for the first time, she identified herself. Nixarax. Her name rippled through the chamber, like a forgotten curse spoken aloud. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. One of the resurrected of Osiris took a slow, instinctive step back. The symbols on the monolith flared. The spectral blue glow surged, pulsing like a racing heartbeat. Nixarax turned toward it. Then she turned toward me and advanced. Her tendrils lashed forward, cutting the air like obsidian whips. I barely dodged, feeling the razor-sharp wind pass inches from my face. The Gigantia soldier fired. Plasma bolts rained down on her armor, but they did nothing. She moved through the fire like it wasn't even there. There was no way to win. But then, the monolith pulsed faster. Nixarax stopped. Her eyes burned brighter. Her tendrils hesitated. Slowly she turned and reached out, pressing a hand against the monolith's surface. The entire chamber shook. A cosmic beam descended from the ceiling, liquid light pouring down like a falling star. It engulfed Nixarax. Her form became a translucent blur, as if she were being unmade at the molecular level. Her eyes met mine, and she spoke one last time. This hunt is not over, Doctor. It wasn't a threat. It was a certainty. A Gigantia soldier fired at the light. The shots were repelled like they didn't exist. Everyone froze. Even the resurrected of Osiris, who never feared death, stood petrified. Then one of them whispered, Amon. The name fell into the silence like distant thunder. A cold spike ran through my veins. I knew that name. Amon the First, the creator of gods, the father of Osiris, Horus, and Ra, the true architect of the monolith. He had been erased from history. Humanity had defeated him on Earth. Osiris had told me he sacrificed himself in the war against Atlantis, but I had always suspected the story was a lie. Amon was alive, and he was returning, not for redemption, for revenge, against those who had dared to cast him out. Humanity, the other cosmic gods. I turned to the monolith, still trembling with the energy it had unleashed. This isn't a hunt, I murmured. This is an act of war. The cosmic beam intensified, and Nixarax vanished into it. The light dissipated, the temple fell silent. But something told me this story was only beginning.